What is good, everybody, man? Welcome in to the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI. Myself, your host, Zach McKinnell, as always, man, joined by my co-host, Coach Leroy Frederick, out on spring break. So we have a little bit of time to bring you guys a lunch live stream. I know everyone's probably either at work, on the road to get some lunch, or sitting in their office acting like they're working, trying to figure out what's going on with Twitter or X and trying to keep up with NFL free agency, all the craziness that's going on, man. But yesterday, Coach, massive news coming out of Tennessee State is Eddie George accepts the head coaching job at Bowling Green. Listen, it kind of leaked out right on Saturday that he was interviewing, that there was some mutual interest, things like that. And Sunday, Pete Thamel drops the bomb, and I want to say one of the local Toledo newspapers drops the bomb that he's accepted the role of 5-year deal coach into his tenure at Tennessee State, man. And it's Coach, it's March 10th. You guys are getting ready for spring practice. There's teams, Coach, that have in the FCS that have been in spring practices for 2 to 3 weeks now.
Yep.
Now you got to go conduct a coaching search. The AD is the interim head coach right now at Tennessee State, Coach. One, how you doing, man? And two, where do we even start with this news?
Man, I'm pulling stuff up as we speak, but man, I'm doing great, Zach. Like I said, man, we got a couple days in before we hit spring break, so into the spring break, spring football season part of it. So got off to a good start. And to get right to what we're talking about, first and foremost, I had no clue Bowling Green was open still at this point in the game. I don't know what happened. Maybe you can fill us all in how we got here, being that we've already gone through 2 signing days. And now here we are going into spring ball, and Bowling Green is just now hiring a coach. So get me up to date on that part. All right, because I don't know how we got to this part.
Well, Loeffler, who was the head coach at Bowling Green, he got signed by the Eagles after the Super Bowl. Okay. So it was a late departure for him. So he actually left Bowling Green to take the quarterback coach position at the Philadelphia Eagles, which, listen, that's a massive upgrade, right? Because you go from Bowling Green to the quarterback coach with Jalen Hurts in the room for a team who's young. Yeah, the defending Super Bowl champion. Shout out to Loeffler in that move there. So, Coach, a very, very late opening, right? And the first name that actually popped up, Coach, Bowling Green went after Mercer head coach Mike Jacobs really hard. And that's who they wanted, right? Ties to the area, Mike Jacobs, an up-and-coming coach. Coach, I mean, we saw what he did with Mercer this year. His first year, we've seen what he did at the D2 level at Lenoir-Rhyne. Well, Coach, what Mercer do? They dropped that bag on him. They said, you're here till 2029. Up the price on them. So, listen, Mike Jacobs stays at Mercer. Well, I think that opened the door for a guy like Eddie George to get that interview. And also, too, let's just put it all in perspective, Coach. Eddie's been interviewing for everything. Interview for the Bears job. Interview for the Kennesaw job. Was linked to a few other G5 openings this offseason. Interviewed for some jobs last year, if you remember. So I really do think, Coach, Eddie saw the success Tennessee State had last year, playoff run, first conference championship since what, like 99, or a share of a conference title. I think he saw the success and said, if I don't make a move now, Coach, and if we have a bad season next year, that door might not be open any longer. And I think he was a little bit not desperate. I don't want to say desperate's the word, right? Because it's still Eddie George. He probably still could have forced his way in a door in the coming years. But I think he thought this was his opportunity to take the momentum from a very successful season and get to the next level, which is smart at the end of the day. And I'll say this, Coach, the reason Bowling Green makes sense to me, I really do think Eddie wanted that Kennesaw State job. I think that was the job he had circled as the one he wanted to jump. And he was one of the final 2 guys for that job. And with Jerry Mack getting that job, I think it forced Eddie to kind of look at some other options. You see him interview for the Bears job. You see him interview for this job and eventually take it. I still think it all goes back to him wanting that Kennesaw State job and Jerry Mack ultimately landing that job.
And, with an overall record of 24-22, I'm kind of like you. If we go back to it, I don't think Eddie in the beginning really wanted to coach, but I think the bug bit him, and he's into it. And I'm kind of like you. I mean, in that next cycle, the iron's hot. You got to strike. You got to get into it. Ohio, he has ties to it. Again, like you said, let's just be honest. He's Eddie George. So when you're talking about it, you know, so I understand the move. I gotta believe he's got a plan in place. And then you're never really out of it when you're talking about the recruiting part of it because of the portal. So, you know, there'll be some people that'll come in and say, well, you know, he doesn't know what he has. Okay, he's got a couple weeks to really figure that out. And if he doesn't like the pieces that are there, him and his staff can always opt into getting the pieces that they want from the portal to fit what it is they want to do there at Bowling Green.
Do you think, I'll say this, one, I think, I'm with you here. I don't know if Eddie wanted to be a full-time college football head coach when he first. I think he fell in love with the coaching aspect as he went along. And I think just recently he kind of had that itch to move up. And I do kind of wonder if he has success at Bowling Green, man, how far does this thing go, right? Do you see a move for Eddie to the P4 level? Because I do. I think if he goes and has success at Bowling Green, we've seen multiple coaches from Bowling Green elevate. Yeah, like I can see it happen. And now, listen, I get all the people wanting to see him go to Ohio State. I just don't know if there's going to be a pathway there for a long time unless something crazy happens with Ryan Day and that staff. But I do think this is – I kind of want to pivot here just a little bit, Coach, because I do think a lot of the storylines surrounding this move circle back to Tennessee State more than Eddie George to a point. Because, Coach, we just talked about it's March 10th, right? You talk about interim head coach, right? And we look at Hampton last year, right? A late opening. They name an interim. He serves out the season, does pretty well, gets named the full-time head coach. Albany loses Greg Gratuso, last month? They named the OC as the interim head coach for the season, right? Too late to really do a national search right now. Coach, I don't know if you've looked at the staff. This is what a lot of people fail to realize. Coach, who are you naming the interim head coach here? Because let me just run it down for you, right? Travis Partridge, only been there a year, came from UT Martin. No HBCU ties, no ties to Tennessee State. Defensive coordinator Brandon Fisher, no ties to HBCU football, no ties to Tennessee State. Associate head coach Joe Bowden, no HBCU ties, no ties to Tennessee State. Coach, there's not a lot of deep HBCU connections on this staff. And I think that's why you saw the AD step into the intern role because I mean, let me ask you, we don't see this a whole lot,
as I'm
right?
looking through the staff.
What is it? I think Richard.
Right. As I'm looking through the staff.
Go ahead. No, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah, I got you. You're good.
Okay. As I was following through the staff with you, I was going to hit that next on the bulletin points. Like, you know, where do you go? Because I got to believe that these guys on staff are going to all want to go with him because they don't have any ties to Tennessee State, if that makes sense. So, you know, my whole thing was like, okay, so what are you going to do now in that search? Are you going to have to go out and get a whole stay? Because if I'm not mistaken, and you'd help me out a little bit more with this, Eddie was making a pretty nice pick.
Yeah, he was making I think he was making 400 something K at Tennessee State.
Right. So will the next guy get that? Yeah. So will the next guy get that bag or what? You know? So that's my whole thought process in that. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, I'll be curious, but I just think it's a weird situation, right? Because you look across the SWAC and the MEAC, and even and people can say what they want about Tennessee State not being an HBCU conference. A&T and Hampton have a ton of HBCU connections on that staff, a ton, and I think it's a very weird thing, right? Where you bring in Eddie George and you kind of give him free reign on bringing in his guys. Well, Coach, the problem with bringing in his guys are when Eddie leaves, guess where his guys are going? With Eddie. And so I do think it puts Tennessee State in a weird position where, let's just say this, and this is just an example, right? Let's take a few schools, Southern, Alcorn, Jackson, right? If any three of those, if said takes a job tomorrow, right, Coach? Y'all got someone on the staff with plenty of HBCU ties, yourself, whoever it may be, that can step into a head coaching role for an interim role for a year, right? At least. Jackson, if TC walks away tomorrow, there's multiple guys on the staff that can step into an interim head coaching role with plenty of HBCU ties, plenty of SWAC ties. Southern, Coach, hell, there's a coach that's won more games than any other coach in the SWAC right now on that staff that can step into a head coaching role. And so you have guys that are even Colsey, right? There's guys on Colsey's staff right now that can step into a head coaching role if something would have happened and he steps away tomorrow. It's a very, very weird position, man. And I think I was talking to our guy Josh Sims from HBCU Nightly yesterday about it. I was one, curious who they were going to name the interim, and it's the AD. Two, it forces their hand. They're going to have to do a national search. And Coach, how broad can a national search be in March?
Where do you go? Right. How quickly do you break that search down? Because you don't have a lot of time. To me, what would be the time frame? I think you have a month to find the right person for the job. I think you have a month. And in a month, how many people can you really person? You know what I mean? And I don't know what the AD situation is as far as how far he wants to go into this. Is he willing to stay the interim until then? But then the bigger question becomes now, okay, the AD is December into the season. He's still got to go find, willing to bet dimes to dollars that everybody that's on that staff is leaving with Coach George.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about a head coach that's got to be ready to go with a full staff. You know what I mean? So you've got a lot of work to do in a short time to get there if you're asking me my inside the building type of opinion.
Yeah, and also too, and I'm gonna say this. I've really and I think multiple things. We got to acknowledge multiple aspects of this conversation. One, the situation Tennessee State finds themselves in is not their fault. Just due to all the racism and the underfunding and stuff, like, Coach, I mean, the state of Tennessee is trying to just shut the university down at this point. I mean, they're firing everybody, they're cutting money, and it's a hard situation to deal with, right? And it's a real conversation that has to be had, that's an aspect here. And you can look at Bowling Green and say, man, who wants to go to Bowling Green, Ohio? Who wants to go coach at Bowling Green? Is that really an upgrade? Is that really this, that? There are a lot of coaches, Coach, that I don't think are going to want this job just because of all the extracurricular politics that you're going to have to deal with. And that's a real thing that I think needs to be addressed while also acknowledging that it's not Tennessee State's fault that they find themselves in this position, but it's a real thing that coach, you have never been a head coach before. If I come to you and say, "Coach, you might have one shot at being a head coach." Are you gonna push all your chips on the table on a job where all the odds are stacked against you?
Nah, it's gonna be tough. The footing of that job is slippery. You know what I mean? And it's not like you're walking into a, you're gonna have to play ball when you get to that conference. So the footing at Bowling Green has got to be better than what it is right now at Tennessee State. So I understand that, which also leads me to the point that there's not going to be an assistant to stay around. You know what I mean? I'm sure they've had this talk before in the coach's office. So you're looking at, in the next couple weeks, there being one person in that office for those kids to go by and talk to, and that's the interim head coach, which is the AD. So
Yep.
Again, they've got to be willing to bring somebody in, and it may not be their A1 guy, but they've got to get somebody in there as quickly as they possibly can at this point.
And then also too, how many guys are going to be jumping to leave mid-spring practice too? Because coach, you have your short list, right? It's a lot harder to make the call right now and be like, "Hey man,
You got to have your
pack it
short
up."
list.
Yeah, you got your short list, but coach, you calling the number one guy on your short list in December versus March, that conversation is going differently.
Oh, ain't no doubt. The only thing that could be possibly a saving grace for the situation is that we know there's another cycle with the portal.
Yeah.
But you've got to get somebody in there, and I harp on it again, Zach. You got to get somebody in there immediately to see what's left in the cupboard, because we know the quarterback situation, and we've talked about this on our show numerous amount of times. If you don't have the guy, if you don't have the trigger puller, it's not going to work. And right now in this situation, it's got to be a situation where you got somebody that's going to come in, hit the ground running. He's already got 10 in a week's time, 2 weeks time at best. You know what I mean? So you want to be picky, but how picky can you be?
I'll say this, and coach, we kind of talked about this before. Some names you could see, from what I was told, a real reliable source inside the program is they want a guy with HBCU ties. They want a guy with head coaching experience. I'll say this.
Right.
A guy like Fred McNair would check a lot of the boxes. A guy like Dawson Odoms would check a lot of the boxes. And then you have the assistants that have been waiting for an opportunity to coach. You got to think Matt Leone interviewed for the OC position at Tennessee State less than a year ago. Been waiting for an opportunity to take a head coaching job. Could you spin the block on that? Courtney Cord has reportedly been looking for that. Connell Maynor. I think you, coach. I mean, I think you look at those big three, right? Odoms, Fred, and Maynor. As much as I know everyone hates recycle coaches, at the end of the day, like, you got to get somebody there. Even if it's a 1-2 year rental, right, coach? You got to get someone in the building just to stabilize something. Give me your thoughts.
And I guess, for me, Zach, Tennessee State's they've got to make it concrete, crystal clear, however you want to put it, on what they want, what the expectations are, and hey, take into consideration Zach, look, man, we know you just got here in April. Look, we're gonna work with you through this. So don't feel pressure, whatever. They've got to make that known. They got to make that clear. People that they can call right now. And I know there's a lot of coaches that are not in jobs right now. I understand that. But you've got to make sure that you get that situation lined up and ready to freaking go immediately with people that you can trust are going to put this thing on, and Zach could be the head coach tomorrow, and you can conduct a lot of assistant coaching interviews and have a full staff by Wednesday. But if you don't know them, Zach, if you don't know what the thought is or how we're going to make this happen, Tennessee State's got to make it clear, hey, man, before you apply for this job, this is what it is, and then go from there.
I just listen. I think before the next portal window opens, you have to have somebody in place, and it is like there's just no debate. There's no question. Like you have to have someone there, and I get everyone saying, "Listen," and I agree. I think outside of the stuff behind the scenes, this is one of the better jobs in FCS, and I do think there's going to be some people who want the job. I'm just saying there have been multiple coaches I've spoken to that have said they personally wouldn't take it just because of the behind the scenes work. And that's a real thing. And I'm not making it up. And it's not a shot at Tennessee State. Like I said, it's not their fault, but that is a real thing. There are going to be coaches that do not want it because of that. And I see the Teddy Keatons of the world. The Teddy Keaton would be an interesting choice. I mean, coach, I just don't know if you leave a spot. We'll see. I do think that's someone you at least reach out to. And then also, too, there's probably plenty of promising assistants that you could probably convince to come in and just give it a shot, right? And I don't know who those are, but I do think you gotta start. Coach, I'll be honest, I really do think 2 weeks is pushing it. I want to be safe and give them a month. Coach, they got to have someone named by the 24th.
They've got to. I'm with you. Realistically, it's got to be that. But how in tune are they to the pressure or the what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Calls. They definitely will get that. And again, like you said, B, they've got to make a decision. And I can almost bet you, like I said, dollars to dimes, the next guy that comes in won't come in with the same contract money-wise as Eddie. You can't convince me of that. That's willing to take less than four within that job. Hey, man, this is 1 year, just like you said, or hey, man, you're signing a 3-year. That's got to be first and foremost in what they do. And they've got to be really, really quick about putting that out there.
Now, this would be interesting. The QB coach at A&L that's Keaton, right? Keaton Evans. That'd be an interesting one.
Yes.
So that could be an assistant that could.
They just got a shot. So.
Yeah, but I mean, he played at Tennessee State. So,
like you said, just. Blood, sweat, tears. I get it. That means a lot. That does mean a lot.
It does, and also too. I mean, if you're one shot at a head coach is at your alma mater, you would figure that would weigh pretty heavily in your decision making as well. At least I would imagine it would. The last topic though, Coach, I kind of want to transition here. There was a lot of, and it seems to happen every time a coach leaves. There was a lot of conversation on Twitter, and it really just, man, it rubs me the wrong way every time it happens, and it feels like a recurring topic on this show. Like we really have to. Because we got to rip the Band-Aid off. We got to have a real reality check here, a real conversation. And listen, I would love everyone's opinion in the chat because it is, we really have to have a conversation. I don't care who your favorite school is. I don't care if it's Jackson. I don't care if it's North Dakota State. I don't care if it's UAlbany. I don't care if it's Mercer. I don't care if it's FAMU. I don't care if it's Alcorn State. Hell, I don't care if it's Auburn. I don't care if it's Mississippi State. I don't care if it's Florida. Your favorite school is a stepping stone job for somebody. And it doesn't matter if you hire a celebrity coach. You could hire me and Coach Fred right now. Your school is probably a stepping stone if we do really, really well. We have to stop acting like we are. Gosh, man, it bothers me every time a coach leaves, coach. And we got people on social media and jumping on videos and Instagram lives and writing paragraphs on social media talking about how it was disrespectful to the university. And we got to wait to see if we can congratulate him on his new opportunity. And we got to stop hiring this person or these type of people because all they do is use our universities and use this and use that. It's like your school is a stepping stone. And coach, looking at all of college football, unless you are Ohio State, Alabama, USC, and like Texas, your school is a stepping stone. And those 4 schools are stepping stones to the NFL. So we really got to put it in perspective here, man, that like the days of coaching at a university for 37 years straight is gone. It's never happening again. That's just not what the business is anymore. That's not what college football is anymore. We've really got to wrap our minds around that. Coach, I'm going to throw it to you because, man, I am so sick and tired of the sob stories and the rants and the emotional reactions to it, man.
Woosah.
Right?
Woosah. Nah, but it's like any other business, you know. It's like, you know, going to work for IBM and trying to use that to get the job. It's just a business. And, you know, the great job at Memphis, he's got them rolling at an all-time high, and he uses that for a stepping stone to the next level. You know, that's just what it is. You know, again, when you talk about guys to do well, you got to have the expectation that they're only going to be there long. Coach George came in for all accounts. They basically had to, I don't want to say force the job, but they basically had to convince him to take the job. Like, he didn't want to get in. Once he got in, he got bit, had success, slowly, boom, opportunities came about. And like you said, there were more things involved than just having an opportunity to go to Bowling Green. We get it. You know, he's Eddie George. His wife is one part of the successful singing group, SWV. Again, on this show, we don't look into people's pockets, but you got to believe Eddie George is well off to the point. So, you know, again, buy here, pay here. Again, Toyota sees that I'm selling all types of cars. They give me the opportunity. Yes, I just use that as a stepping stone to get to Toyota's sell floor. So, you know, those things happen.
Coach, there were Tennessee State fans blaming him for making the FCS playoffs and saying that it was his fault.
I mean,
that he asked the university to waste money that they didn't already have, and that he couldn't coach, and him and his staff were just bad coaches, and they were ready to hire a real coach and a real AD. And I was like, what are we talking about here? What are we doing?
They got to the
playoffs. Oh man, like I really do think that people like we have to get used to. I think, Coach, if you can keep your coach at the FCS level for 4 to 5 years, I think that's probably the max. 4 to 5 years is amazing at the FCS
I
level.
mean, what was the coach name at North Dakota State that used North Dakota State as a stepping stone to the NFL?
Well, to the NFL, I don't know about NFL, but you had Ince. So Ince went to USC and is now the head coach at Fresno State. Kleiman went from North Dakota State to Kansas State.
USC. USC.
Yeah, and then Kleiman went from NDSU to Kansas State, and the guy before him, Bowl, went from them to where was it? Wyoming, I want to say.
So again, have opportunities. Things are gonna happen.
Coach,
Coach, again, I liken it to any business.
Drop back in and drop back out. You're really choppy all of a sudden. Drop in and drop out. I'll add you back up. I'll make sure looks like the Wi-Fi is tripping out a little bit. I want to make sure to get Coach's video right real quick, guys. But yeah, like and D-Love, I get it. That everyone loves their school, and I say this about FBS fans that just lose their mind when they lose a coach and things like that. But I really do think that we look back on the Eddie George tenure, maybe there wasn't as many championships as what it was with the Dion or whoever it may be. But you like to put it all in perspective, guys. He won the first share of a conference championship since 1999. 1999, made the FCS playoffs for the first time since 2013. And let's be honest, anybody who watched that game, Tennessee State, Montana, he was like 1 or 2 possessions away from winning that game. And if they just don't kick to Junior Bergen, they beat Montana in Montana. Coach, you back? You got me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. But Coach, I was just saying, I really do think Eddie George's tenure at Tennessee State was one of the more successful ones in recent memory. Like, and I say that if they just don't kick to number 5, which Coach, me and you could have wrote that scouting report, they beat Montana.
Yeah.
In Missoula. Now, the next week they probably go to Brookings, and we all kind of know what would have happened in that game. But Coach, they were competitive against a team who was in the FCS national championship the year before.
Right.
But Coach, I mean, looking at the whole situation though, like I said, and Mr. Campbell's right. If any amount of success, Coach, and let's just be honest, that should be. I think coaching trees are kind of overlooked, right? Like we would love. So, like, let's just say this, Coach, you're at Alcorn. Let's say Said goes and wins like 4 Celebration Bowls, right? Alcorn fans would love to keep him. But it's good to have a coaching tree where Said takes a job at Southern Miss or Mississippi, just keeps taking the step up. You bring someone up from the staff to be the head coach at Alcorn, and the winning continues. That should always be the goal, right?
You would think. But again, like you said, man, that's just business to me. And that's just what this business has, turned out to be. So I flip it back. If he's not good and it doesn't work out, they just continue to go, subpar, and they keep him there longer. I mean, I get the wins and loss part of it, but I mean, what's the difference, if that makes sense, when we're talking about this in business? So,
Sean, I'll say this. My guy B-Fish deserves a head coaching job, but listen, that's about 99.9999999% sure he's probably going to Bowling Green. I would love to see Brandon Fisher as a head coach. I just don't know if it's going to be at Tennessee State. And he's done a hell of a job coaching that defense, man. One of the best D coordinators in the country, in my opinion. Everyone on the show knows how I feel about my guy B Fish. And T Martin has come up in the chat a lot, Coach. Could you imagine T Martin at Tennessee State?
You're running the risk again in 2 years.
But you're running the risk on that with everybody, though, right?
But I'm
like,
just saying.
Let's just.
But T Martin's name, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the state of Tennessee, you know what I mean?
That recruiting would go crazy, though. That recruiting would be insane.
You got to believe that everybody on staff that Coach George asked to go is going to go.
Yeah,
got to believe that.
I would agree with that. Now, Coach, what are your expectations for the season now for Tennessee State? Because we were talking, they had a chance to potentially
take the next
repeat.
Step.
Yeah, but repeat. Now, let me pull up the schedule, Coach. We'll go game by game. I kind of want to get your idea on what your expectations are for this schedule. So, week 1, North Carolina A&T at home.
I still think that's doable.
A potential win, right? They should win that game.
Yeah.
Now, week 2's a loss. That's North Dakota State and Nashville. Probably not getting that one. I mean, tough is a word, Coach. Tough is a word. Alabama A&M September 13th at home in week 3.
Definitely doable.
Agreed. I'm with you on that one. Now, Tennessee Tech in week 5 after a bye week at home.
Now, that's going to be one of those that it's doable, but it's going to be tough, like you said. But it's doable.
And then you got this is the stretch that gets kind of tough. At Eastern Illinois, at SEMO the next 2 weeks.
Got to take one out of those two.
You got to. Can't go 0 for 2 on that stretch. And then I think this is a must-win too. Howard at home for homecoming.
Got to get that
October 18th.
Got to get that one.
And then you get Western Illinois and Lindenwood at home, both very winnable games. Not very good, but then Coach at UT Martin on the 8th is going to be a brutal game. UT Martin is going to be really, really good again. And then you end the season home against Gardner Webb at Charleston Southern. I mean, you went from probably, I think you could see 8 wins on that schedule. If you bring the team back and bring with Eddie, I think you're probably pushing 4 or 5 wins right now, just with all the uncertainty around the team.
And that's the other part of the portal. You know, how many of those kids are going to stay? How many are going to leave? How many are you going to be able to keep? I got to believe right now, if they're not on spring break, the AD has had a team meeting and expressed to those kids, hey, man, stay. This is what we got cooking. This is how this is going to go. So, again, I pointed right back to him, the administration. You know, you've got to move quick, but you've got to move in a way that's going to be successful. I want to make sure that we say this, or at least I say this. This is my view, not yours. But you can coattail it if you want. You can't spend time looking for a splash hire. You cannot. Meaning, you cannot jump on the first superstar name, big name. Denzel Washington wants to be a coach. Now we hire Denzel. You cannot do that. You've got to have somebody that comes in and is able to stabilize the situation and keep the train moving. Unless you're saying we're just going to start from cinder block 1, you cannot take the first big name splash hire with no experience to make this happen. You just can't do it. Not in this situation. Can't do it.
No, because I mean, you combine no coaching experience with having to build a roster from building block 1 through the portal.
Yeah.
It is brutal. And like Jay Boone said, man, you can flip really, really quickly in the wrong direction with the wrong hire here.
Oh, ain't no doubt.
It is. It is. It is very. This is what's tough, Mr. Campbell. I don't know if you were in the show earlier. We went through the staff. Who was the interim? All the coordinators are going to go with Eddie and don't have any HBCU ties. Most of the assistants have no HBCU ties. that came with it, and they're all Eddie's guys. Like his whole staff are guys that he brought personally that would not be at Tennessee State otherwise. Who on the staff? Like the fact that here's the other reason I say this, Mr. Campbell. I think it's going to be tough to do this. The AD is the interim head coach right now, guys. Not a
And
coach from
that
the
was going to be my
staff.
point.
Yeah,
that
the
was going to be my
AD.
point to what Mr. Campbell said. Because if he felt comfortable with any of those guys, even though they would leave, he still would make, which doesn't make sense to me because you still name one of those guys. You name Coach Fisher. Even though I know Coach Fisher is leaving, I still name him because I don't know how many times in a situation like this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time I've heard of an AD stepping in as the interim head coach. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't remember one.
And I've been in the business for 20 plus, and I've never heard of this, not even at the junior college situations. Have I heard the AD stepping in to be the interim head coach? So that tells me he's not comfortable with any of those guys on that was on the current staff. So again, I just can't see it at that point, at this point, if he hadn't done it now, because that to me would raise a red flag immediately if I'm a guy that's on that staff that's trying to stay around. Like, we didn't even have a conversation, but I love it here in Tennessee, at Tennessee State. I want to stay. Wait, we didn't even have a conversation. He named himself. Coach George, you still got that room for me, dog? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of this? So do you think that if you're McNair, like put yourself in Fred's shoes, like you know him pretty well, would you take a role as a intern?
I got to have a definition of that.
I agree.
That's
what I'm. Yeah. Listen, I mean, I'll say this: if you're bringing Fred McNair in, just give him a 2-year contract.
I don't think a coach like that, like Coach Mack, Coach Odom, Coach Maynard, I don't think those guys jump. Well, maybe. I can't speak for them. But if I'm in their shoes, if I have their resume, I don't think I can take this without at least a 2-year guarantee.
Agreed. A minimum. And I think,
yeah,
I'll say this: if I'm McNair or Odoms, I'll take a 2-year deal. If I'm Leone or one of these up and coming assistants, I need 3 to 4.
Oh, no doubt.
I'm not taking a 2-year deal for my first head coaching position.
No. If only if you tell me the expectations are as low as we can't even get under the turf how low the expectations are.
I got to walk into the office and be like, is 0-12 okay? Am I good with 0-12? Like, I need that assurances. I need it in writing.
Man, hey, look, this is what it is. This is the only way I take this.
Yeah, I ain't take a 2-year deal.
Those things have got to be up front, and they really need to be in place right now. This is Monday.
Agree. And listen, I'm going to say this. If I'm them, right now I'm swinging for the fences for one. And then listen, if we land on whatever, that's cool. Like, Coach, I want to put this in perspective, and this is no offense to this school. Valley just landed the offensive coordinator from Ferris State. Coach, you've coached at D2. If we can get him to leave Ferris State for Valley, if I'm Tennessee State, I'm like, we're going to take a shot at somebody. But just on principle, right? I mean, that's just my opinion. And listen, if we land on a Sam Washington, if we land on a Fred McNair, then guess what, Coach? That's great. I got a hell of a 2-year, 3-year transition period. But, man, if I can go swing for the fences and get the guy from Ferris State or get the guy from Harding or someone like that, then, man, that's even better, right? But at the end of the day, man, like I'm telling you guys, my date is March 24th. If it's not done by March 24th, I'm concerned.
Yeah, that to me tells me that a lot of guys saw what they were wanting on paper and was not willing to take that, you know. So I'm with you on that deal. If it's not done by the end of the month, something's wrong with it.
Dukes, I almost said it too. I almost said call Terenzo Quinn. see what Quinn's doing real quick.
And he's from up around that area, if I'm not mistaken. He's from
North Mississippi,
area.
Isn't he?
Yeah, not too far from that Tennessee line. So, I mean, why not kick the tires?
There's a lot of good assistants that I would take a swing at, right? I mean, you know, we mentioned the obvious ones earlier. Matt Leone was interviewing for a job on Tennessee State staff last year. Why not give Matt Leone? I mean, because Matt Leone's been what at HBCU since what, like 2012, 13-ish? Because he was at Southern before he was at Central?
Yeah. Him and Coach were there together, and when Coach got the head coaching job, he left and went with him. Yep.
Yeah, with Oliver. So that's a call I'm making. I don't think Quinn's a bad call to make. I mean, Coach, we've talked about this. You know, Quinn's going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. It's just up to Quinn to decide when he's ready to make that call. And I throw Quinn in that boat with Leone, Coach, because I think they're both going to be good coaches. Quinn and Leone have to make sure this is the position for them, right?
Because it's their first, no doubt.
Oh God, what a question here. This is the loaded one.
My boy man. My boy
O'Daffer. O'Daffer could Mr. Campbell, he's the DC over at South Carolina State. He interviewed for the Alabama A&M head coaching job.
He's around a
FAM grad. O'Daffer's a FAM grad. I named the guy.
Florida. We can do that.
Yeah. Bro, God, I'm forgetting his name. I'm trying to look it up because I don't want to butcher his name. Who is the head coach at Harding right now? And I'm blanking on it. Paul Simmons at Harding. Already won a national championship over there. I think that would be one because Coach, he applied to go to UAPB. Now the question for him would be, does he want to leave the state of Arkansas, right? Because Harding to UAPB is a little bit different. I'm gonna say this, Mr. Campbell. I think he's leaving. I've already said I think he's leaving. I would love to see B-Fish stay and get a shot.
Somebody that knows the landscape, and the only reason I say he's not going to stay B, because to me that would have been the no-brainer call after Coach George called and told you he was taking the job. Okay, Coach, thank you, best of luck, boom. Coach Fish, what's happening? Need you step in. It's your interim job. You know, it should have happened that quick. You know what I mean? Should have happened that quick.
Oh, man, Mr. Campbell's hilarious.
I don't know much about Nashville, but you know, I hear downtown does get a little crazy.
The word is there's like a part of Nashville. They call it like I forgot. I think me and Scotty were joking about this. They call it Nashville like the white Atlanta. Take with it what you will, man.
Just the thought of that.
Yeah, just the thought of that, right? It's hilarious. Listen, as many country bars and guitars you could think of, and guys who think they can sing country music, that multiply it by 2 in your head, and that's how many are in Nashville.
Could be a stepping stone for somebody's career. Get down in a karaoke bar and go off, and next thing you know, got a record deal.
Bro, my side's hurting. That is freaking hilarious. I'm trying to think if there's another one. Listen, look, correct. They got bars and women for days. The bachelorette party capital of the world of the US.
I would have never put that together with Nashville.
Bro, so I've been to multiple games in Nashville, right? Because I'm real close with the SID up there, man. Shout out to my guy Nick. Bro, I passed the stadium because I came in. I came into the city the wrong way, so I had to go through downtown and turn around to get to the stadium, the Titan Stadium, because they were doing all kind of construction. Bro, I pull it through downtown to turn around to get back over the bridge. I swear to God, man, I passed like 4 party buses, 4 on like the same block, and I was like, I'm just looking. I'm like 4. like two would have been like, okay, I get it. Maybe a lot of people are getting married this weekend. Bro, 4 is crazy. And coach, I'm talking about packed. Not 4 with like a small group of females, but like packed out, like every seat filled in the party bus. It was crazy.
Every time I've been there, man, it's been absolutely freezing. So it's been to where I'm going and back to the
that's
hotel.
also a fact. It's always cold. Now, Jason Ma would be interesting. I don't know. I don't know if his step is. I think his next step is coordinator. And I love my guy, Coach Ma, but I think his next step is OC. If I had to guess, I don't know if the jump to head coach is there right now for him. But yeah, that's some names, Mr. Campbell, that I could think of. The Harding head coach, B Fish, O'Daffer, Leone. Those are kind of the 4 that I have in my mind. And then also, too, coach, you could venture out and possibly, I would say, poach a Big South OVC assistant from somewhere. Right, like one of the assistants at SEMO. Yeah. You went and poached the OC at UT Martin last year for your. Maybe you keep him, right? Maybe he doesn't go with Eddie. Maybe he wants to stay, right. And maybe he is the guy to be the interim head coach. Travis, who was just the OC last year, really helped Jalen Ellis kind of find his footing in that offense, have a massive year for his final year. So maybe that is the move there, right? I also really, really like the DC over at UT Martin too. Been doing a heck of a job over there. That coach, they just keep finding guys on that defense, and that's why UT Martin's won like 4 straight Big South OVC championships. There's a reason for that, man. But coach, any final thoughts here, man?
Just to hit Mr. Campbell's question, and I was kind of going through the messages once I figured out how to do it on this new layout. With the alumni, would they welcome Zach as the head coach? You know, that's always, when you're talking about this landscape, that's always a huge sounding point, so to speak. That's always a hurdle, so to speak. Would they have to pull the trigger on a Brandon Fisher? You know what I mean?
Now, this is a good point, because the reason that it's so concerning, coach, about the political structure behind Tennessee State is because now Eddie was kind of the buffer, right? Because they respected Eddie in the community, a legend in the Nashville area. If you go hire someone who can't be a buffer, man, how ugly does it really get behind the scenes?
Right. So again, like you said, and like we're saying, it's got to be quick. It's got to be something. There's got to be a underlining point to it, so to speak, I think.
Here's my concern, right? How do you balance pleasing the powers that be with the fan base? Because obviously Eddie wasn't enough to reinvigorate the fan base, right? Coach, they played SEMO. There were like 1,200 people there. How do you balance getting the fan base invested versus pleasing the powers that be? And let's just be honest. I hate to say this, pleasing the powers that be might be more important.
Yeah. Because they could cut your water off, and then they could really, really become difficult. Really become difficult. So
I just wonder how in tune they're going to be with like the fan base, right? And then also too, Coach, did you see Eddie's comments?
No, I didn't.
Okay, hang on. Let me pull those up, and we'll end the show with this. So Eddie did an interview with HBCU Sports about why he left. And this was yeah, he did it yesterday. All right, hang on. Bro, Twitter is really pissing me off today. This is outrageous. It's still down. All right, let's see. Okay. Bro, this one paragraph. So he said, quote, my intentions were to really stay here at Tennessee State with hopes that things would definitely get better and so forth. And they will eventually, but just not in this time frame, and I'll understand that.
We need to get some Tennessee State people on here to talk about it because, I mean, how bad was it? If Eddie George had it bad, can you
Coach, I
imagine how
mean,
bad Zach would have it?
bro, I mean, it is as bad as you think it is, man. Like I'm telling you, like to go do some research after the show and just look at all the budget cuts and people that have been fired and like I mean they're making a real push to like close like the school.
Like, close it, close it.
Bro,
I mean, you hear
they're
that a lot, but
I mean, no, but like they're tearing it apart, man. Like it is like I know how bad it is in like the IHL and like the state of Mississippi with how they treat Alcorn, Jackson, and Valley. But dude, the board at Tennessee has taken like the most racist turn ever. I mean, bro, I'm talking about taking money and throwing it back at the University of Knoxville and throwing it to all these random universities. It is outrageous. I'm telling you, it is like it is sad. It's disgusting, man. And I really and like that's why I said earlier, man, it's not Tennessee's fault that they find themselves. It's not Tennessee State's fault that they find themselves in this place, but it's I mean, God, man, it's just it's really, really hard to see like a silver lining out of all this.
man, if Eddie George is saying that, if Eddie George, who played down the street, couldn't generate or galvanize or connect both sides, yeah, I don't know if an established coach is going to even try to dabble in that situation.
Now, listen, Sean's kind of like our Tennessee State guy in the chat. Said the current president is like I guess improving relations a little bit with the state legislator, but not look. It's still tough. And like Mr. Cable said, they've been stealing money for like 80 years. Like if I'm not mistaken, remember when they came out with that big list of HBCUs and how much money they owe each of them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like Tennessee State was like up. I don't remember who was. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Like A&T was up there, right? I think A&T was one on that, and then like Tennessee State was somewhere up in like the top 5 area. Like the state of Tennessee is just that. Yeah, 2.1 billion.
Yeesh. Yeah.
And so and it's tough, and it's really tough to have this conversation, right? Because on the show, like, and our show's in like a unique spot, right? Because we keep it about sports on this show for the most part, but it's really tough to have a conversation like this without getting into stuff outside of sports. Just because, Coach, I mean, that type of money, those type of resources that are being cut off from Tennessee State directly tie into sports and directly tie into fan support. Because Coach, the reason they got to go play at Nissan is because the Hale Stadium on campus, man, parts of it are like condemned,
Right.
and they don't have
right.
the money to fix it. And the resources on campus aren't getting there because the state of Tennessee isn't giving them the money that they deserve, and that they've been deserving for 80 plus years. So therefore, it's tough to just have a strictly sports conversation about this when there's so many external factors that are really and truly playing a massive role in this that I don't think a lot of people completely understand.
Yeah, and it's and like you said, it's unfortunate because the the common denominator between all is supposed to be sports, music, and when you combine that, it's kind of tough. Like you said, when you start peeling back the layers to all of this stuff, and then you hear about the lawsuit, university versus the state. it's a tough situation. I didn't realize it was this tough. I was always under the assumption just because he played down the street, if there was anything that was a pushing need, that he could pick up the phone and get it done. But if he couldn't get it done, how would little old me get that done? That would be a tough situation. It kind of goes back to you saying that nobody that has a true footprint in the business would just say, hey, I need that job to leave, their current situation without some guarantees in it because of the current deal of what they are.
And that's it's just such it's a tough situation to talk about too, because it goes, I mean, I'll even bring it back to myself. Like, to be honest with you, like when I first got into this space, it was strictly to talk football, right? And I've had to educate myself on the external factors, and I've had to listen to guys like you. I had to listen to guys like Mr. Campbell, Mr. Ford, like all the people who call into all these other different shows and have called into my show and given me backstory and education of stuff that I didn't even realize were affecting not just these universities, but the athletic department, all the things going on behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to when I first got into the space. And to extend that from what I remember I had to learn and understand, to extend it to, Coach, we just talked about the staff, and this is why we mentioned it, right? The reason it's important to mention that this staff didn't have a lot of HBCU ties, right? Coach, it was my job to learn about it as media, because I have to talk about these programs. I have to keep it real about these programs. I need context to add to our discourse here on the channel. Those coaches, Coach, sometimes you take a job, Coach, if I'm coming from Montana and I'm B-Fish, right? Man, why would B-Fish know anything about that? Right. And you walk in the door and you're like, well, we need this done and this done and this done and this done. And Coach, like, they're looking around at you like, who in the hell are you? Do you know what we've been having to go through to get this done and this done and this done? Right? Because, Coach, if you take a guy who looks like me, coming from another state, who knows nothing about HBCUs, and he gets to Alcorn and he's like, man, we should get new weights, and we should do another practice field. Man, you and Sed would be like,
go sit down, man.
We need to have a conversation, right? About some context behind what's going on here. And so that's why it's important to mention that staff doesn't have a lot of HBCU ties, because how much frustration was really building up behind the scenes because they weren't educated on all the intricate things behind the scenes that people who look like me and people who come into the space that aren't privy to all this other information, we didn't know about. And so you have to learn and evolve. Just think about the frustration. Oh no, and just think about, and I'm not even just talking about people like me, Coach. People who come into the space that didn't graduate from HBCUs and weren't surrounded by HBCUs also don't know about it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, just think, for me, coming into it many years ago, 2014, not understanding the complete landscape. I'm thinking I'm coming from, the junior college circuit from Kansas, two schools out there, Pearl River, to Alcorn State. And I'm thinking, man, I'm making a jump from junior college to the show, baby. And then you get there and it's like, wait a minute now. And then you start asking these questions, and then everybody's like, hey, man, calm down, and the AD there, and this is true story, Zach, the AD there at the time, I went in and I talked to him and I shared with a couple ideas of things that we did at Pearl River to get some things done this way. And that man looked across that desk and told me, hey, Coach, take your big city ways back to the big city, that kind of thing. So to me, that was just like, okay, that was the introduction, and then kind of getting into it and leaving Alcorn and going to Stillman College at the D2 level, HBCU. Alabama is 2 blocks, University of Alabama is 2 blocks away from Stillman. And to see the disparity from Stillman, okay, I get it. But to see the disparity from Alcorn to just the intramural side of the University of Alabama sports is completely, it's completely different. So imagine coming in 2014 and your head coach is the minority in the situation, and he's fighting tooth and nail to get things, put in place. So, there was a pushback when they hired Jay Hobson, and eventually, it kind of went away. But you took all the side jokes, you took all the side comments about that. So I don't think people really understand the factors that really go into all of this, not just the governmental side of it, but the internal side of it as well.
Yeah, there's just so much, and that's what I try to explain because I'll say this: it's so different for me and media talking about schools like UT Martin and North Dakota State and Montana, then when I have to talk about like the SWAC and MEAC, and I think it's interesting too to see the responses I get from different fan bases as well. Because, Coach, I mean, like to talk because you saw this when we went to Frisco, right? And we talked to all these fans from Incarnate Word and South Dakota State, North Dakota State, and Stephen F. Austin, man. Shout out to our guy Dustin the Rev, man, in the chat. And Dustin is kind of, is always in the chat learning as well, and he kind of knows a little bit about it. To hear you tell your stories about what you guys have to deal with at Alcorn, and then those guys, our guys over in Incarnate Word are like, y'all got to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like it's eye opening to them because like when you're not around it, when you don't have to cover it, when it's out of your sight, out of your mind, you don't ever think about it, right? And you're like, man, our problems are the biggest in the world, and in the Incarnate Word, we got to deal with this, and this, and it's like, damn, man, like I didn't even know what was going on just up the road at Prairie View.
Yeah,
had no idea, right? And it's always interesting. Making that distinction. But man, I'm just glad we got to have this conversation, man. That's why I think platforms like ours, like Scotty's, like Josh with HBCU Nightly, everyone in the space, man, is so important because like I do think it's an important conversation to have. And like the thing I like about our platform, man, is not only do we cover HBCUs, man, we cover FCS football. We've covered P4 on this show. We talk everything. And so I do think it's important for people who might be listening to the show right now, man. We got over 100 plus people in here who might be listening to the show that might not be from an HBCU or might not understand all the dynamics that go on behind the scene. And to hear this conversation, they're going to go and educate themselves, kind of like I did when I first got into the space. But I remember I would listen to Scotty's show and Mr. Campbell or someone would call in and go on like a 20-30 minute, just educational rant because Scotty was kind of the same way, right? Where he didn't really understand all the intricacies too. And so like me and him kind of came up in this and learned together. And I remember, man, I would hear stuff and be like, man, I got to go research this. Like I thought I had a good education, right? I'm college educated, man. I was in a PhD program. Like I was like, man, I know stuff. Like I'm not stupid. But it's like, man, you just realize how much you miss out on like the things you weren't taught. And I mean, I remember I would go read all kind of stuff. And anytime someone had a book suggestion or article suggestion, I would go read, man, because I wanted to be educated on the show. So I feel like for us, man, if me and you weren't educated on everything involving in the space, and that goes for FCS, HBCU, G5, man, Coach, if me and you aren't educated, man, we're doing all the people who support the show a disservice, man. We over 2 million views on YouTube, 7,000 subs. All the people that read the website, listen to the audio podcast, man, we're doing them a disservice if we don't educate ourselves. So I'll say this before anyone jumps on Twitter, anyone jumps on Facebook and starts ranting about certain things, please make sure you got all the all the pieces to the puzzle, right? Don't have an incomplete puzzle and be ranting about the pictures blurry when you didn't put the picture all the way together. I'll just say that. But Coach, man, any last thoughts, man, before we wrap it up? We said 30 minutes, man. It's an hour and 10 minutes in. We never stick to our time limit. That's what makes this show great.
But, again, I always say, people don't really understand that it's way more than football. When we're talking about the FCS level, I will say that, as they put it, we are all having money issues, but some FCS money issues are way deeper than other FCS money issues. And that goes from, staff to support staff, the difference between that. And I think once, you sit down, like you said, and you do your homework and you understand that, okay, you're playing a school that, they have 11 full-time coaches just like you, but they also are paying 15 other coaches and GAs and assistants to your 11. So, again, there's differences, but as the guys that wear college shirts, and as I've told you before, my little mantra being the only active coach in social media, it's much more than football, but we'll never cry about the much more.
Hey, that's a fact. Man, hang on. So, then all we gotta do is educate Coach on game scheduling, and then y'all will be complete. I told Coach that that Alcorn game was gonna be in Tallahassee. See y'all for homecoming.
Well, and again, that's absolutely crazy because we were told that that was going to be their home game, but that game was going to Mobile. So we're super excited about that, and then they kind of just out of nowhere drop it, and here we are thinking the game's going to be in Mobile. Oh, we're going to town. Okay, that's cool too.
I'm so glad y'all didn't move it to Mobile. I'm so glad y'all didn't move it to Mobile. I'm sorry.
No, that was on them because it was their home game.
Yeah.
So the initial thought came out, or release came out, is that they were going to move it to the Port City. So we're cool with that as well. No, but again,
I'm not.
they flipped it.
I hate neutral site. I hate neutral site games, especially that one, right? Because let's just be honest. You rank. I would say you rank stadium environments in the SWAC, man. FAM and Bragg and Alcorn on the reservation are two of the best. And one, the SWAC really messed this up. Alcorn and FAM should have been played. It's ridiculous that it's going to be 2025 before y'all play. Come on, man. Yeah. I've seen enough of the other games. Bro, do you know how amazing it's going to be to see Alcorn go into Bragg when y'all are both good, and then vice versa next year, FAM going to the reservation? How big that game's going to be? Because those fan bases are going to travel because they haven't seen it.
Right. In years, since the 70s or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, how many alum were at the last Alcorn FAM game? Not many.
That I can't tell you. Like I said, I would.
I don't know how old. I don't know how old my guy Mr. Campbell is, but I don't even know if he was at the last Alcorn FAM game. And he's been around, so I don't know.
I think the last FAM Alcorn game, if I'm not mistaken,
it was like the late 70s, right?
Coach McNair was playing receiver, and he used to tell us about that game.
Oh, so it was in the 90s.
That game all the time. Yeah, it was. No. Fred McNair. It was in the 80s.
Oh, 82, according to Alcorn's website.
Yeah, it was in the 80s.
82, and Alcorn won 23-13 in Tallahassee, Florida, 1982, October 30th.
Yeah, so I mean, when you talk about it, like you said, when you go through the conference, I would rank the reservation experience number 1, Southern number 2, Bragg. Let me stop. I'm playing, but again, it's gonna be
the chat going crazy.
It's gonna be
comments on this episode gonna be wild. They're gonna be like,
"Who do you have number 1?" Yeah. Oh, number 1 is the same. I don't know about number 2, but number 1, according to Tiffany Green, it's documented. According to Jay, give me 5. It's documented. They said it. There's no atmosphere like the reservation, especially a night game. It don't get any better. So I got to ride.
Why don't y'all have more night games?
For conference play? Most of the conference games, when they come out with the time, they are set by the conference as far as that goes. We
need a night. We need a Soul Bowl and Alcorn kicking off at 6:30.
Man, can you imagine that day?
Bro, D's stupid. He's a deer. He said that's why y'all don't have night games. It's a deer. Oh God, bro, I'm dying.
Hey, where's D from? Where is he from?
Oh, I think he's Fam or Fam or Jackson. I think it's Fam, but oh my God, I'm
Them
crying.
boys, okay.
He said, "Gotta drive home. Them deer deadly."
Them boys, okay.
Oh man, I'm hurting. Oh, he said he's a Mississippi kid, so yeah. So he's Jackson.
Okay.
Oh man.
So I can say that the reason they don't have the night games in Jackson.
He said family in Adams County, so he gets it. He's making. Oh, that's true. Getting in and out of Lorman at night isn't optional. You got to go somewhere, but you can't stay here. That's the saying. That's the saying for Alcorn, man. Listen. We also put that on a sign for sure on the exit.
Hey, you got to go somewhere, but you can't stay here.
Bro, that gas station only got room for one person in it. That's it. That's it if you ain't got a dorm room. Oh, man, he said those deer wrecking all the folks' car with the beams. Deer running across the field.
This what we doing today?
Oh, man, it's funny. I'll say this, man. It is different, man. I thought I was gonna. She said the deer are gonna be making the tackles during the game. Just
we really doing this today. Okay. We really doing this today.
I really thought I was gonna have to take a nap on the stretch for that Alcorn Jackson game. God, that was oh man, it was so early. It was like 4:45, and I thought B was just joking, Brian, and he said you better be on the stretch by 5. I said, man, you are tripping. He said Blue, be on the stretch at 5, or you ain't making it. I said,
no
all
better
right, man.
I'm telling you, no better.
The last one I got to check off is Bragg. I've been to all the big ones in the SWAC. Been to Bama State, been to A&M, been to Jackson, been to Alcorn, been to Southern. I need to go to a real game at Grambling. I've been to a spring game at Grambling, haven't been to a real game. So Fam and Grambling, I got to knock off this year. It's like, man, I think Bragg's cursed. Every time I try to go to Bragg, coach, something crazy happens off camera. So I don't know if Bragg's cursed right now. Yes. So I need to schedule Bragg.
Sure. That's the one. That's the one to come to.
Alcorn Fam or Central Fam. That's the two that are on my radar, man, depending on the weekends. But coach, man, that's another great show. We went almost an hour over what we thought we were going to, but it's all good, man. We hope y'all enjoyed the show. Hit the like button, subscribe. Me and Coach will probably be back later this week. He's on spring break, so we're gonna chop it up. Probably do another live show this week. We'll probably do a mailbag this week, man. So stay tuned. If Twitter ever gets back popping, make sure to check out for the tweet. Go ahead, comment your questions, any topics you want to talk about on the mailbag later this week. We're gonna do that probably Thursday, Friday-ish. We'll let y'all know. But for Coach Fred, myself, the Bluebloods, FCS Football Central on SI, we out for right now.